The Raiders give the big extension to Geno Smith. The Cardinals did the same with their young ascending tight end. We had a trade in New England, and it's a pretty big day in Boulder, Colorado. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Friday, April 4 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Wrapping up another week. The NFL Draft is in under 3 weeks. It was a busy Thursday in the NFL. A number of extensions. A pretty big day coming up in Colorado today with the Shedeur Sanders Travis Hunter showcase. It's not even called a pro day in Colorado for Deion Sanders. It is the showcase, which we're going to have a bunch of teams and coaches and GMs there to watch two of the most talked about prospects in this year's draft. But it was quite a busy Thursday, like I said. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? A lot to get to. Where are we starting here on this Friday?
Yeah, all right. Let's go ahead and start with the big extension coming out of Las Vegas. That would be Geno Smith. You know, it's a happy Friday for us. We're really enjoying getting ready for the weekend, but it's an even happier weekend for Geno Smith. 2 years, $85.5 million. He was recently acquired from the Seattle Seahawks after failing to be able to come to an extension agreement with them. They go out, they sign Sam Darnold to take his place. Now in Las Vegas, he's getting a cool $66.5 million in guarantees added to the 1-year contract he already has left remaining from that previous contract. Seahawks couldn't get it done. The Raiders get it done. What are the biggest takeaways from this agreement?
You know, Ben, there are so many takeaways to this one, and I'm going to start with some people probably thought this happened so quickly. They just traded for him. Now they extended him. Around the NFL, people were asking, like, what is taking so long? Because Geno was traded for on the Friday before the legal tampering period, if people remember. That is a long time from when that happened to when this extension got done, to the point Geno has not even had an introductory press conference in Las Vegas. And people are wondering, are the extension talks now going well? Maybe he plays out in the final year of his contract, because usually whenever you trade for a player, it is best to do the extension with the trade to make sure he doesn't have more leverage because you just acquired him. But there was no extension as part of the trade, and it took a number of weeks, close to more than a month of here, for the deal to, or less than a month actually, but it took some time for the deal to finally get done. And I'll be honest with you, I'm so curious to see the actual details on this contract, because it was reported, and it says on the screen, 2 years, $85.5 million, but that is the max value if he actually hits every single incentive and escalator in that contract. The actual base value to this deal is a 2-year contract worth a base of $75 million for Geno Smith. So that comes out to $37.5 million per year. The reason it's so interesting is because if you go back to Seattle for a second, when he was the Seahawks quarterback, when they started negotiating with Geno Smith before they traded him, the Seahawks came in with an offer at around $30 to $33 million per year. Geno's camp, they were like, we're looking for upwards of $40 million per year. As soon as Seattle heard that, they were like, forget it, we're out. We're not even going to try to do the whole back and forth. And they traded him to Las Vegas, to Pete Carroll, who knows him really well, for a 3rd-round pick, with the pivot plan being Sam Darnold on that 3-year contract, which has an out after 1 year. This contract, of course, the base value coming in at $37.5 million tells us that he did not get the $40+ million in base that he was looking for. And essentially, I'm curious to know, are there guarantees going into year 2, fully guaranteed money going into year 2? Because if there's not, I think Seattle right now is just raising up their hands and being like, what the heck, dude? We would have done that also if that's the case. So like with all contracts here, I get the full contract details in the coming days when it's officially processed with the league office. That's when you see the actual details, how much is fully guaranteed, how much is injury guarantees, what's the actual base value, how much is in year 1, could they get out of it before year 2? Like we said of Sam Darnold, it's really a 1-year, $37.5 million contract, and they could get out of it after 1 year. Is that a similar structure here with Geno Smith? Or is there fully guaranteed money going into year 2 as well? But the overall contract now does put him under contract for the next 3 years in Las Vegas. That is also how long Pete Carroll got on his contract with the Raiders. It was a 3-year deal with a team option for a 4th year. So they're really tied together now. As long as Geno plays well, he'll be the quarterback regardless of the guarantees. But again, we're going to see that full structure over here. But I am just so curious to see what the actual numbers are. And again, we'll see it here in the coming days. But I'm curious to get Seattle's reaction to this if the numbers come out like that, where there is an out after 1 year.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask you because they were hesitant to obviously give Geno more than $40 million a year. And while, again, like you said, 85 million's on the screen, but it's not really going to be 40 million a year unless he just absolutely blows everything out of the water, in which case everyone's happy. No one cares because you're killing it. But do you think the Seahawks are like, bro, like we would have done this deal. We wouldn't have had to trade you.
That's exactly what I'm wondering here, Ben, because again, those negotiations, usually whenever you have these big long-term deals with big money and huge guarantees and whatever, it's a back and forth, right? Like we've seen it with many players like, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Trey Anderson, like it's a back and forth. You propose something, there's a disagreement, whatever. This Seattle negotiation, which started a week before for agency, it was like, hey, we're thinking about, $33 million a year. And this structure, Geno's camp was like, I don't like that. We're thinking about 40, 42, $43 million per year. Seattle was like, we're done. Forget about this. We know your head coach is down there in Las Vegas. Let's make a trade. 3rd round pick. Boom, it got done. It was over. So it just happened so quick that there was no real negotiation here with John Schneider, the GM, and the agent for Geno Smith. And they were like, you know what? We'll move on. And we know that Sam Darnold is a free agent and we could get him on this type of a contract. And they did that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I think Geno thought and his camp thought that if you're going to trade us and we'll end up with Pete Carroll, we'll be able to get that contract that we want. It looks like he's getting a contract over here where it does go over 40, but only if he hits incentives. So we're going to see the full incentive package in the coming days. We're going to see if there's an out after 1 year. We're going to see all of that over here in the coming days. But this is a quarterback that they clearly coveted. I think option number 1 in Las Vegas was Matthew Stafford. As soon as that was done, they went after Geno Smith. They got him, and now he's the guy. And really, the next conversation here is when Pete Carroll had his introductory press conference, he talked about how we're going to win in year 1. It's not a rebuild. That number 6 overall pick becomes a very fun discussion right now about what they do with it. Do they go with an Ashton Genty? Do they go with a different direction? I think that conversation of it becomes really interesting now with Geno Smith officially locked in and the roster that they've been building out over here this offseason.
Well, it wasn't just Geno Smith that got some big money here on Thursday. There was another guy out in the desert. That is Trey McBride getting a 4-year, $76 million contract extension. The young tight end is now the highest paid tight end in NFL history with APY. He also gets the largest amount of guaranteed money ever for a tight end. It's a big deal for a guy who he's gone out there and balled out, even though he couldn't get touchdowns last year. What do you make of this deal, and what do you think it does for other tight ends moving forward with the market?
Yeah, this is a big extension. He was entering the final year of his rookie contract. He's been an ascending player in Arizona last year, over 1,000 yards for the first time in his career, 111 receptions, 1,146 yards. Ended up with 2 touchdowns on the year after not having any touchdowns for most of the year. I believe he set the record for most receptions in a season without a touchdown until he finally caught one in week 17 or week 18, whenever it was. So this was a player who Kyler Murray was looking for him all the time. And really, we talked a lot about the Cardinals last year going into the season and how excited I was about this offense. Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4 overall pick. He was good, but he was not number 4 overall pick great. He still has a lot of time and he'll continue to ascend. But the number 1 option in that offense was Trey McBride. Really, you look at his career so far, his career arc coming in as a 2nd round pick. Started his career only 29 receptions, 265 yards, was behind Zach Ertz. 2nd year really blossomed to 81 catches, 825 yards. We had him on the show here before week 1 of last season on NFL Spotlight. We're like, this guy is an ascending tight end. He'll become one of the best tight ends in football. And he really showed it this past year. And now they pay him on this contract of $19 million per year in new money. And frankly, Ben, this is a tight end market that has needed a boost for a long time. And it's about time that it finally gets that boost, because you look at the wide receivers, for example, we're at $40.1 million. The tight ends are almost half, like more than half of that. I mean, right now, finally, we get to 19 million over here with Trey McBride. But the tight ends for years, whether it's back in the day with Greg Olsen or Travis Kelce and George Kittle and all those guys, they've complained privately and publicly about how ridiculous it is that the tight end market is so far behind than where the receivers are right now in the NFL. And finally, it gets a little bit of a boost over here, getting to $19 million per year. This helps a tight end like George Kittle, who is in need of an extension. I believe will get extended at some point this offseason in San Francisco. I think he's going to aim to become the first ever tight end in NFL history to become $20 million per year. But it's a fun discussion. I'll go into a bit of a story time over here. The tight ends have been so far behind when it comes to the average annual value compared to every other position. And the reason for that is it dates back to Rob Gronkowski years ago when he became, one of the best tight ends in football. After his second year in the NFL, this was under the really old CBA, he signed a 6-year extension in New England. So that put him under contract for 6 years and 2 more years, for 8 years in New England. And during that time, he became the best tight end in all of football. So every other tight end in the NFL that wanted to get extended, the teams basically told them, why do you deserve to get more than Rob Gronkowski? He's far and away the best. So because of that, Rob's deal stayed at the top of the tight end market for so long and was never surpassed. And as a result, the receivers kept on getting reset. And the tight end stayed with Rob Gronkowski, who got extended, I would say it was around 2013 or whatever it is. So they're still recovering from all that back then. Finally, we get this boost over here to $19 million per year of Trey McBride. I would imagine that George Kittle passes that to get to 20. And finally, this tight end market is finally moving after being stuck for so many years, in part because of that Gronkowski contract, which Bill Belichick did years ago. So here we are now. Trey McBride is the highest paid tight end in football. And for the first time in a long time, we have a bit of a true reset at that position when it comes to the tight end market.
Well, when this news initially came down, you told me, you're like, it's the biggest deal ever for a tight end. And I was like, there's no way that's true. Look at Travis Kelce's numbers. And you go through it. It's pretty wild to think about. But, he got, after his rookie extension was 46.8 million. His next contract was 57.2. He didn't have more than 22 total guaranteed on the most recent and only 20 on the last one before that. And clearly this is why you've had the conversations with guys like Evan Ingram, who are like, look, I'm lining up in different spots and I'm being used primarily as a receiver. Why am I not being compensated that way? So it'll definitely be something to watch moving forward. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on here on the show. Let's get to some other quarterback news that we had take place on Thursday. The New England Patriots gave away traded Joe Milton to the Dallas Cowboys for a 5th-round pick while also sending out a 7th. Milton was just taken in this past year's draft in the 6th round, even got some playing time, looked pretty good at, being out there late in the season and during training camp, all the rookie mini camp, all that kind of stuff. And that sparked conversations that maybe this guy does have some value to some other teams around the league. And the Dallas Cowboys clearly thought that was the case and said, hey, if we can give you a trade, essentially, that we only have to move 46 spots back in a swap, and we got a quarterback that we feel pretty good as our number 2 guy, let's do it. New England Patriots, though, it felt like they were going to be able to get more than this for him. Are you surprised by the compensation they got?
Let's flash back for a second. He was a 6th-round pick last year. The Patriots, for what it's worth, had no intentions of drafting him last year, but it got to a point when they were looking at their draft board and it's like, this guy should not really be on the board, so we'll just take him. And yeah, he did have some, his arm is a cannon, and we know that already. And he was, he showed some flashes in the preseason. He played in that Week 18 game versus the Bills, which, for those who don't remember, they won that game, and as a result, they slid from having the number 1 overall pick to sliding all the way down to number 4. And now they trade him over here to the Dallas Cowboys, who going into the day only had Dak Prescott and Will Grier on the roster. We know that they've try to put an importance on the backup quarterback position. They've had Cooper Rush for a number of years. They once traded a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance, who is still currently a free agent, but they know that Dak Prescott, if he ever gets injured, we need somebody who could be kind of reliable, and they go after Joe Milton. Now, people are asking, why would the Patriots trade Joe Milton? Well, they signed Josh Dobbs here in free agency. It was a 2-year, $8 million deal. And they believe that Drake May, who showed a ton of flashes last year, he's the future. He's the guy. We want to put as many resources around him to help him to keep on growing, to keep on being the guy and have all the support and whatever. Now, Joe Milton is not a bad person or anything like that, but Joe Milton is somebody who wants to be in the quarterback room and is pushing to play. And he knows he's looking up at Drake May there in New England, and they're trying to put all the people in his ears who could continue to help him elevate and become a better quarterback. So Joe and the Patriots, basically, they allowed him this offseason to go out there and seek a trade and be in a better situation where he can maybe be behind a veteran quarterback who's been there and done that. And he's not somebody who's going to be, fighting to go out be the starter over there, but be somebody where he could learn from them and eventually, whenever his rookie contract is over, he could go out there and become a free agent and sign somewhere else and keep on learning somewhere else. But for now, this is all about Drake May in New England, and they want Josh Dobbs, experienced backup, somebody who could teach him the ropes and be there to be the guy in New England. That was the strategy that Mike Vrabel came up with. That's also what Joe Milton and his agents wanted. This was something that they agreed to before the offseason even started. Like, we like you. Again, they had no plans of even drafting him last year with Elliott Wolf, who's their de facto GM. This was more like, why is he on the board? We're just going to take him and have him here. And he showed some flashes. Now, in terms of the compensation, I know there's some reports out there that they had better offers and all that. I do know there were a number of teams who were interested. I'm not really sure if there actually was a better offer out there. I know they were working with him to try to find the right destination, and Dallas was the one place where he's mentioned, I think he went on the record with this, that he has family who lives in Texas and he grew up a Cowboys fan, so it all makes sense. But I don't think the Patriots are out there like, you know what, yeah, we had a 4th-round pick for him, but we're not going to do it because, we want to do what's best for Joe. If they had a 4th-round pick, they would have done it. So this sounds like it was the best offer out there for him, and now he ends up in Dallas. He'll get to learn from Dak Prescott. He's not pushing Dak Prescott in any way. There is no concern of him taking over the job or anything like that. He gets to learn from Dak. If there's ever an injury, which Dak has had over the years, he'll come in and become the guy. But he ends up in Dallas now, and for New England's sake, it's Drake May, it's Josh Dobbs. That is the quarterback room they're going to move forward with.
What do you think's up with Jerry and kind of trading for these kind of guys, like high upside, maybe a cannon for an arm? I don't know, Trey Lance all over again. Are you surprised that this is just kind of what he likes to do?
It's interesting because they also could have just drafted him last year. I know they had Trey Lance and Cooper Rush on the roster, but he's obviously looking for a backup quarterback. He also made that trade for Jonathan Mingo last year, who's you're trying to get that low risk, high reward type of thing, but they gave him a 4th-round pick for him. So guys maybe that he liked in the draft, but they didn't draft them. Now I could get them because they're available. I guess that's the thinking, but it is somebody who could be a viable backup quarterback option. Keep in mind, they lost Cooper Rush to Baltimore. Trey Lance is still out there, and clearly there was not much interest in bringing him back. So you pivot to Joe Milton, somebody who's played, somebody they clearly liked, and now he'll be the backup to Dak Prescott.
I think Trey Lance is getting looks from the Rough Riders, last I saw.
So the way that it works, I believe that's the CFL, if I'm not mistaken. The way that works is that if the player ever decides he wants to go to the CFL, you have to put him on your list, and now you have first refusal to negotiate with that player. So that Rough Riders team put him on their list. So if for whatever reason he does not get an NFL job, he would only have exclusive negotiating rights with that team. I don't think he's ending up in the CFL. I would imagine he signs with an NFL team at some point, but the CFL could put anybody on their list. They could put Patrick Mahomes if they want. Doesn't mean he's going there, but that's the way it works.
And that was your CFL news update of the day. Finally, let's talk about what we're hoping to see in Colorado later today, and that is a little NFL showcase. It is not a pro day, as the Big 12 has already had their combined pro day, which we didn't get to see the 2 top guys coming out of the University of Colorado, that being Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. They are both expected to work out today. If you are listening to this after the fact, you will know whether or not they did it for sure. They're going to test it in the morning and make sure they are feeling good and looking good to go out there and work out for the numerous NFL contingencies that should be there and a few that will not be there. So maybe they'll be watching along at home. What do you think teams are going to be looking for most out of the two guys that are potential top 5 picks in this upcoming draft?
Let's start with Travis Hunter. I think one of the big questions going into this is he going to test is he going to do drills as a receiver, as a cornerback, as both? None. What's he doing here? I don't think we have a clear answer of that going into today with that. The other one that's more interesting, I mean, both of them are interesting, but Shedeur Sanders going into all of this, his draft projections right now, like we spoke of Charles Davis earlier this week, it is so all over the map that this is a situation here where teams like the Titans, like the Giants, like the Browns, they're going to have people there. I'm not sure if all the coaches and GMs from those teams are actually going to be there because they have met with him privately. They have brought him into their building. Some of them are not going to go there. For example, I believe it's been reported, but Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, won't be there. There's been some buzz that Brian Daboll won't be there. But I could see Joe Shane being there. This is one of the more later pro days that I can remember. April 6th or April 4th for a pro day is pretty late on the circuit, but the Colorado Buffaloes, they are calling this a showcase. They're not calling this a pro day. They're going to try to do some sort of a show of here because they're expecting a lot of people to be there to see both these guys. But this is a chance for Shedeur Sanders here to solidify himself as a top first-round quarterback in this draft because we've heard a lot of people say that when it comes to the scouting community, some people look at Shedeur Sanders closer to Jackson Dart than he is to Cam Ward. Shedeur has a chance over here today to go out there. He did not do anything at the combine, keep in mind, to go out there today. Again, it's on air. There's not nobody running after or anything. It's a pro day. Some teams take it seriously. Some teams just want to see everything be confirmed over here. But this is his chance over here to say, hey, I'm a guy over here who should be drafted high, whether that is the Browns or the Giants or a team trading up or the Saints at number 9 or the Jets at number 7, whoever it is, to try to prove to them that I am a guy you should draft over here in this upcoming draft. We've heard people say he should not go in the first round. We've heard people say he could slide to 21 of the Steelers. We've heard all of it. This is his chance over here to solidify it here today at Boulder, Colorado, at their showcase today down there in Colorado.
All right, guys, make sure that you are out there subscribing to us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, which we both recently learned about. A little fun fact there for those who listen all the way through the episodes. Hopefully we get a little bit of action this weekend and we can have a nice fun show on Monday and we get to talk a little bit more about what's going on with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter next week. And until then, enjoy the weekend, guys.
I thought Ben was wrapping up the show today, but I will wrap it up here. That was a good one, Ben. But that will do it here.
Do you want me to wrap the show today?
No, I'll do it. I mean, you kind of did it, but I'll say the goodbye and see everyone here on Monday. But that will do it here for our. If you're watching on YouTube, Ben is making faces. But that will do it here for our Friday, April 4 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. We will be back here on Monday morning to start a new week, talk about everything that happened over the weekend and more to look ahead to in the NFL, and also reveal who will be our Spotlight guest coming up on Tuesday. We'll see you all here on Monday morning.